to you?
Jennifer, wait a minute.
Who gave you a place to stay? Who are you supposed to be protecting?
Jennifer?
Hey! My lawyer liked that.
Blood and Black Rum Podcast presents Scream 3. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from Coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
And we are back with another one of our Scream marathon movies. So we've done two now in this series. Obviously, there was originally intended to be only three. And then they added on, they tacked on at the end of it, and gave it another film in the series with Scream 4. So...
How dare you call Scream 4 tacked on?
It's tacked on because when you watch Scream 3, all intents lead to them doing a trilogy. And then it even says it in there.
But you can't believe it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you've learned anything from horror films, when they say it's part of a trilogy... It's the final chapter.
Yeah,
it never is.
That is true. You can't believe it. You've I think did they even mention it in Scream 4? I don't know. We'll actually get to that later on. But
honestly,
I can't remember Scream 4 that well.
The only line of franchise that made me angry was when Halo 3 lied, said finish the fight.
Scream 3 is one of those films that is not really. I don't know. I feel like people remember the film, and yet. It's not well regarded, for one thing. It's not. If you look on like critics' reviews and Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and some of the other aggregate scoring for the film, not really well reviewed. I feel like people like to pick on Scream 3 quite a bit as like the detriment to the series, and you can see that in some ways the reasoning behind it because the film was meant to be the wrap up. The conclusion to Scream as a series. And when you take it in that sense, I think you might have some issues with them trying to, like what Randy says, go back to the beginning and kind of start over and reveal secrets that were not there in the first film. Well, when we get to Scream 3...
Because they didn't play it out.
Exactly. When we get to Scream 3 and we're not working with writer Kevin Williamson anymore...
I think that's actually kind of a good thing.
Well, it can be a good and bad thing, but I mean, Williamson doesn't get a chance to like finish out his ideas. Aaron Kruger is the screenwriter on Scream 3, still directed by Wes Craven, but I think that in some ways, Kevin Williamson at this time is doing a little bit more, had taken some more onto his plate. In 2000, he had already done all of the Screams. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Halloween H2O, a couple others as well. And maybe he got too big for his britches with Scream 3. I really don't know that. There could have been some production issues that, led to him not being able to finish with Scream 3. But regardless, I think that you have some issues in Scream 3 with a series that's trying to wrap itself up with a trilogy that was never really proposed or... I don't think that it was ever on the books that would actually Scream would become a trilogy. So you're trying to shoehorn in a lot of things that as a trilogy you might expect, and Randy gives some of those rules in this film. But I don't think that was really the intention when they first began with Scream. And I think you sort of end up with some loose ends that don't really make sense. And some things that come out of the blue, like just completely, 1 minute you're thinking something different, and then the next you're learning that Sidney has a brother, a half-brother, and, they have a different family that is related to Maureen from the original film and her death. And all of those things kind of culminate, but they don't really resonate that well with the audience. They're all things that have been made up for Scream 3 that... kind of just were forced into this plot for no reason. I mean, just to give another sense of like this trilogy being wrapped up with a satisfying bow. I don't think that really occurs in Scream 3. I don't think anybody is super satisfied with Roman as the antagonist in this movie. I think it kind of would have been cool to have a fake out towards the end where Cotton came back and was like, "Oh no, actually, I have been leading this murder."
Well, as I say, as we joked when we were talking about it through Texas this morning about Scream 3. Seriously, guys, it's Cotton.
Yeah, and because that would have done what Randy presents. It would have said, there were secrets at the beginning when we started this franchise that you're not privy to, and in the third one,
and that
we break it out for you.
It really was Cotton.
Yeah, and I think that some of the issues with like having an antagonist like Roman is that you've never met Roman until Scream 3. He's barely in the film for like, I would say at least 50% of the film. He's not even on screen. And they kind of force in this little brother, sister. Maureen actually was a gigantic slut, like Billy had suggested in the first film. And she had a secret family. All of that was like no hints given to the audience. And I think that is probably partially why this film leaves a bad taste in the mouth for some viewers, because it seems to like kind of negate everything else that went on in the previous two Screams. So yeah, podcast over. That's it. End of discussion. No, I'm just kidding. But just to start out, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Scream 3. I'll admit. It is. I've seen it probably quite a few times, and I do remember seeing it like right when it came out. I remember one of my friends and I, we used to watch it so often that we storyboarded the comic of it. We made a comic out of it. I remember distinctly rewatching Randy's videotape and like trying to get it word for word for the script, so that we had the trilogy rules set out. This was back. I mean, I had to have been like what? It was released in 2000, so I was like 10, yeah, somewhere around there. But Scream 3 made a big impact on me when I was 10 years old. But I'll say now, I haven't watched it in forever. When's the last time you watched Scream 3?
Probably been about 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while for me. I don't really remember watching it in the last 5-10 years. It's not something that I was drawn to again, and I can see why now. Watching all three of the films in sequence shows you the exponential drop-off rate of Scream.
But again, that's just about every horror franchise.
It is every horror franchise, but I think that...
And slasher film.
I think one of the key things to look at when you're watching the Scream series in order is you have Scream that starts out pretty serious. It has a bit of comedy to it. It has some goofiness, thanks to Matthew Lillard for the most part, as Stu, but it's pretty serious. And then you have Scream 2, which gets a little bit cheesier, adds another layer of meta, because now we have the Stab series that's part of the whole Scream franchise working in the background. But it's, again, still fairly serious. Then you have Scream 3, which basically just gets rid of its serious aspects altogether, and it's campy almost the entire length of the film.
See, I disagree with you on that. I think this Scream 3 is more serious than Scream 2. Scream 2 is, as I said in our previous episode, a fucking Scooby-Doo episode.
I find that Scream 3 is like that, though.
Scream 3 is campy, but it's not as campy.
I don't know. I feel like they were really playing it up in this one. I'm not sure. A lot of it does seem intentional. But at the same time, some of it doesn't seem intentional. It just seems like, whoops. That was unintentionally campy, and we went with it.
I think the difference is, too, Scream 2, unintentionally campy. Scream 3, intentionally campy.
Yeah, I can see that. That for sure. Scream 2 does have its moments where, like we had mentioned in the previous episode, you have Ghostface kind of like prancing around in the background. In this one,
when he's like prancing about, you get a little ding ding ding, little piano and xylophone, twinkles to like he's snooping around.
In this one, you do get Ghostface kind of in the background, but I feel like in some ways it's meant to be a little like more intentionally stupid and ridiculous in the background.
It's not but it's not as bad as Scream 2. Scream 2, they literally like have scenes where he's like poking his head out, like winking, like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna get you."
Well, some of my favorite moments in Scream 3 though have that too, like in the final encounter in the study, and Ghostface got flipped over a couch, and then all of a sudden, Dewey bursts. Not Dewey, I'm sorry, the
Kincaid.
Kincaid, the cop, bursts in and he just like kind of pokes his head up over the couch like a dog. Like the owner's home. Dog pokes his head up. Who's that? But I mean, I see that in both. I tend to find Scream 3 as more of a ridiculous, campy affair that they're really playing up certain things. Like they're really playing up Dewey and Gale being like the primary element of this film, and so inherently with Dewey you have sort of a goofy ridiculous western-esque character that's there's the love affair, the on again off again Gale Dewey romance, the I guess you could call it would be a good moniker for Gale and Dewey together, Gooey, the Gooey romance, or gooey, I would call it. A gooey romance between Gale and Dewey. So you have those things that are at play here. And I think, like, it does become so goofy because you have Dewey on screen for so much of the time. You have them doing their own detective work here. And really, Neve Campbell as Sidney kind of disappears from the film for almost
50%.
50%, yeah. 50% of the film, she's really not in it. And you have the film kind of like checking in on her every now and then, like, oh yeah, Sidney is like the main element of Scream, isn't she?
She's just up in the mountains, Dawson's Creek steam's playing, as she's walking her dog Cherokee around the premises.
She's living an idyllic life up there in the wilderness. You know what you're thinking? You're thinking, what a great life. She has a dog. She lives in a nice place in the wilderness. Her dad brings her groceries.
She's a California state women's abuse.
Yeah. How great is that?
She's taking her
life of trauma.
Yeah, she's taking her trauma and
she's gonna transplant it on other people.
I have something my boyfriend tried to listen.
Yeah.
Let me tell you
about my boyfriend, alright? Yeah,
I told him I just wanted a PG-13 relationship, and this is what happened. He went off the rails. He got all... Ooh.
I do like that the place that Sidney's living in is so locationally undefined in this film. Because we know that her dad comes to visit her. So we know it's not Woodsboro. We know it's not there because Dewey was supposed to have been there, and he's helping facilitate with a movie. So we know she's not in Woodsboro, and we know that it can't be that far from where she was originally living because her dad makes regular trips up with groceries.
And it's not that far from Hollywood.
So I like that it's just locationally there's no rhyme or reason to where it is.
There's just random mountains in California, outside of LA. She's just living in one of the letters.
Weren't they in random mountains in the first Scream?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. The first house,
a farmhouse / mountain / right outside LA.
Yeah. He's like, hard-working middle-class family. The Prescotts own this palatious estate on top of the mountains in, California.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, the opening sets up that, she's obviously been kind of estranged from everybody in the Scream franchise. She's not been with Dewey. She hasn't seen Gale in a while. She's living out her own life, by herself because Dewey told her it's important to stay off the grid. You know, this was she doesn't have an AOL name.
I just find it funny that like nobody like in like detective agency or FBI was like, okay, you've been the victim of 2 serial killers. Let's put you in witness protection.
Yeah, and just get right out of there.
You just got to do it yourself, you know.
Different name.
Yeah.
Different. Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe she didn't want to. Maybe she's that strong-willed where she was like, no, I'm not joining WITSEC. But I do like that the setup itself is all about bringing each of these characters together again. Obviously, they kind of have distanced themselves since Scream 2, and then we eventually get Gail visiting on set at Stab 3, which is
she was at
filming.
Well, she was at a college doing a little seminar about how to be a cutthroat journalist. You know, if you see something, doesn't matter what the ethics or morals are, you go and do it. You gotta be cutthroat. You gotta get that story.
You chase the ambulances. Yeah. You go after anything.
Sweet talk the mustachioed policeman.
Yeah. So everybody's sort of meeting up at this point, and they're all meeting up on the set of Stab 3 because Stab 3 is filming, and it had Cotton Weary in it as sort of a guest star.
Which is funny because now he's parlayed all this into, you know, daytime Montel Maury talk show host.
Yeah, he's sort of, what is he like? He's basically like a constant guest star on daytime TV.
No, he's got his own talk show.
Or does he have his own talk
called
show?
Cotton.
Cotton.
You get to see a billboard at the beginning too, like Cotton, and he's wearing his nice, overly baggy jacket. And
I do like that he's developed the dad joke of 100% cotton for like using that. And he breaks it out right away on the phone call that he gets. I would say that probably is not bringing in a lot of the ladies, but maybe it works.
He took Donahue's spot. You know
what?
Donahue's getting up there in age, so he's like, got that. Don't worry, I got that.
You know what does work for Liev Schreiber though is the white suit jacket with the white
cream
tennis shoes with
the cream colored sweater, and they're all very baggy, all very pleated.
I love it. I love pointing out the fashion in the 90s films, but, you know,
you can still see in the 2000s, like the early 2000s, like the stuff from the late 90s that's hanging on, like that. Every chick in this film is wearing like leather, leopard print pants. The only person in this film that looks out of place is Neve Campbell with her outfit, 'cause it kind of...
She's very, I would say, like, most of the time she's fairly modestly dressed. She does love the cut-off tank top shirts. But yeah, the one other thing that does stand out here is that they had like 50 different belly shirts on set for like, you know, everybody. Parker Posey gets one.
Well, that was in her
Jenny
contract.
McCarthy gets one.
That was in Parker's contract. She had to have 76 different cutoff t-shirts.
And whatever else those pants were in that one scene where she jumps into Patrick Warburton's arms. Like tribal print pants.
Tight red leather, whatever pattern it had. So weird.
I do like.
But she's got that super late 90s like haircut too with the highlights and everything.
Oof,
I know she's supposed to look like Gail, Courteney Cox in Scream 1, but it's like so.
It's pretty bad. Yeah. I do like that turtlenecks were making a nice comeback in this 2000 movie. Because Gail puts one on. What is the thing though about combining white on white? Because that's or gray on white. Because that happens quite a bit in Scream 3.
I just think of like the Backstreet Boys video. Like, they're all wearing the white, pants and wife beaters and jackets, baggy. Can't remember which video that was, but that's
Yeah, I gotcha.
That was a look for a little while.
One thing that struck me about as we're talking about the opening a little bit, the opening does have a nice throwback to Scream 2, where you get a glimpse of a playbill from the play that Sidney was putting on in Scream 2. It's a nice little callback to that, I think. It's a quick shot, blink and you'll miss it, but it's right at the beginning. I don't even think, again, you cannot see the name of the play itself.
Because they were like,
they're like, we don't know which one it was. But, we made one up for this.
Some Greek thing.
Yeah. But it's a nice callback right there at the beginning, if you look for that. Happens like right when Sydney walks in the door the first time at her home when she's with her dog Cherokee.
Her palatial estate.
Yeah.
I still find it weird though that like her father shows up and is like talking to her like you just shut yourself in, Sid. You gotta open up. And we don't see him again.
Yeah, he doesn't come back.
No, we didn't see him in Scream. We didn't see him in Scream 2, right?
Yeah, that is kind of surprising too, because I pointed out, you said we didn't see him in Scream 2, but in Scream 2, you would think he would show up because he knows that his daughter's being targeted at college.
Yeah.
Right? He'd be like...
It's national news,
the first on a plane to go visit this hoity-toity liberal arts school to protect his daughter. But yeah, we don't see him in that one. And then he comes back for like literally 2 minutes of the film to stock her up with Chips Ahoy and...
See, that he would be like if they didn't go like the whole Sydney's got a secret half brother, like, oh, it's Mr. Prescott? Yeah, it's been me the whole time. My wife was a whore.
Another good one. Another good choice. Why not? Yeah, that's a perfect example of, again, where the film decides to go in a manner that doesn't really make sense logistically within the film, because it just makes up things about Roman. It just says, yeah, I'm your half-brother, I'm jealous of you, but I've never made an attempt to reach out to you ever, and I set all of this in motion. And it's just kind of like, leave it at that. That's the show, the tell and not show portion of writing, the school of writing, that you gotta you gotta show it. You can't just say Roman was there the whole time and expect your audience to just accept it.
But again, that happens a lot though in films.
Yeah,
it's
trope,
especially in like trilogies where they're retconning stuff. Because it wasn't an idea that they originally had. Now they're like, oh yeah, we got this great idea, and like, here's how they were actually behind the scenes the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen in trilogies. It's not a good approach
writing. No,
it's
not. It's not a good storytelling device, but it is. It is common.
Yeah. So let's talk about the whole beginning aspect about Stab 3, because that is really, I feel like, where Scream, the franchise, gets a lot of its meta
commentary.
The commentary that people tend to interpret as being part of the original Scream.
First question, where's Stab 2?
Yeah, Stab 2 gonna get skipped here. It's sort of like the Thanksgiving 3.
Just
skip right over it. Yeah, no one really mentions it. Obviously, though they've probably been working on it because Lance Henriksen, playing a stand-in for Harvey Weinstein at this point, though, that's sort of an unspoken thing in the film. They kind of hint around the fact that there's a casting couch, and Lance Henriksen's character, John Milton, who sounds like straight out of like a 1600s philosopher,
John Milton.
John Milton.
Rights and the rights of man.
Yeah. But they kind of hint at that. It's an ironic twist here. It's just this Miramax, and this film was produced by the Weinsteins. But
well, the funny thing about that though is, like, looking back, like, apparently everybody knew he was a scumbag.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So like you've heard like how like Gwyneth Paltrow was getting like hit, like unpleasantly hit on at the time, and like Brad Pitt like went up to him and like, if you fucking touch, I will beat your ass.
Yeah, it's kind of it's definitely something that's in this film. And you mentioned that when they bring up the fact that Milton has sort of been sleeping with his actresses on the side, they're really going more, and they talk about the how do they say it, the criminals that have been prospering in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. You said they were talking more about like Roman Polanski.
It seems it,
but at the same time,
even though he wasn't a director, a producer, he was a director. But at
the same time,
you got Roman, Roman.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's true.
I always more made that connection, but that was again before, like 2 years ago when the whole Harvey Weinstein thing came about.
Yeah, I mean there is that.
So now now you're in kind of an uncanny valley now. Watching a film
you're watching a film about them making a film
with a producer who's just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Because he's like, look, it's the 70s. She knew what she was doing, which, granted, like, if she's like, oh, if I want that part, I guess I gotta do that, Yes, it's using, but at the same time, it's like, you can be like, do I really need to be an extra in a film that bad?
Yeah, I mean, well, they go a little bit more in depth with it because they do mention that the one actress who was supposed to play Sydney, and I don't even know who that is, really, but...
Angelina.
Yeah, she had said she had slept with him, and she wasn't ready to let go of Stab 3 because she had to sleep with that pig.
Yeah.
So. But it is interesting. I think Stab 3 in this movie is pretty interesting as a meta commentary, except for the fact that they don't actually have people use their real names like they did in New Nightmare.
That's the biggest flaw, I think, in this film. One, because the idea's already been done in New Nightmare.
Sure.
So it's been done by the same exact person, Wes Craven.
Yeah.
And two, the fact that they didn't go more the New Nightmare route, used actual actors' names and stuff. Because they already done it before in, like, Scream 2 with, like, Luke Wilson playing,
Yeah, and they even mentioned...
Billy and Tori Spelling and, David Schwimmer. So, for this, have it be Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah.
Have it be Parker Posey,
Yeah, and Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Lance Henriksen is so well recognized in the horror element that...
But you couldn't have him be the producer.
You couldn't have him be the producer, right. But I mean, I just think that they would have gotten a little bit more mileage out of going the route of having... each of the characters, or each of the actors who are playing characters from Scream, be their own actor and actresses, and then you get a little bit more of that meta aspect to it that New Nightmare had. But you're right.
Because that's something like Parker Posey could totally get into. I could totally see her like prepping, like, okay, I'm prepping to play myself as Courteney Cox, as Gale Weathers, as me, as because they go that route, but they could could totally do that because she's a freaking terrific actress and really great. Like, she's the standout out of all of them in this film.
Yeah.
But same thing. Like, have like Patrick Warburton. Like, all right, I'm just gonna be Patrick Warburton.
I would, and especially like people like Jenny McCarthy, who
is playing Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah, she's basically playing Jenny McCarthy. You might as well just have her literally be Jenny McCarthy.
Spreading anti-vax.
I think that it works a little bit better in New Nightmare because you do have that layer of reality to it that does, it helps add some tension to this film.
Where the actors and actresses can't, separate the film from...
Yeah.
What they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like that was an aspect that they kind of missed out on in Scream 3. But you're right, too, that this film is basically like Wes Craven said to the screenwriter, Aaron Kruger, take what I did in New Nightmare, watch New Nightmare, and then write me another script, but have it be with Ghostface in this one. And that was what they did with it. And I mean, it works in some ways, but at the same time, a lot of things that happen in Scream 3 feel way too distanced from the original. And it seems like they're really working off the gimmick of the meta rather than having it be an actual element.
They're half pregnant with it.
Yeah.
Like, they want to have, like, this whole, like, oh, it's a film within a film, but they don't go the distance on it,
Yeah, because...
Where they, like, could have, like, the actual actors playing, the part... playing those roles like they did in New Nightmare and kind of making it feel more reality-based. Here, this is where, like, they have the idea, but then they go, like, the campy slasher film route of, like, oh, no, it's like what's going on, what all these shenanigans going on in the film set.
The other thing that is sort of weird is that the film starts out saying the killer has read the script for Stab 3. He's going in order of who dies in Stab 3.
Which is a cool idea.
It's a cool idea. And then it completely drops off. Bye. Gone.
Well, I think, because part of the problem is they say, well, once they figure out what the pattern is to the kills, they're like, wait, there's like 3 different scripts out there. So we don't know who's the next person to get killed is.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, because films go through several fucking rewrites, so they had the idea that there's several different scripts floating about.
I think it would have been a good whodunit, because then you'd be like, well, wait, who had access to this script specifically?
They just dropped them after that. After they reveal that part about the script and all that,
completely gone.
Yeah. And that's a great idea. I think I will give this film credit. It has some good ideas. Like I said, the whole taking place with people who are making, Stab 3, which is tied to the Woodsboro murders, And the fact that Stab 3 is called Return to Woodsboro because it's supposed to be the final film in the trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
So metaphorically you're going back
literally returning
without actually going back to Woodsboro. So it's a great, they have great ideas, but they just drop them.
Yeah.
They're ADD children. They have an idea, they run with it for a little bit, and then drop it and go to something different.
Yeah. It happens pretty much throughout the whole film. And I'll say the biggest, I said it already, but the biggest example of that is having Sydney, but barely having her in the film. And she becomes sort of a secondary character, even though this is about her.
But I think the point of that is because it's supposed to give you the illusion, as Randy states when he, in that little fucking video, which don't you love the retconning of, who's this?
How can we get Jamie Kennedy back in this film?
Well, all I can think of is his sister, who the hell is this? And Dewey's like, oh, this is Randy's sister.
Yeah, it looks just like her, right? It looks just like him, right? No, it doesn't. But yeah, the idea.
Well, it's just like the
special guest star.
Yeah. But when he's giving his whole trilogy spiel, he mentions, that anybody can die in a trilogy. Everyone's up for great game. So I think the whole point that Sydney's not the focus, and we still have it's more focused on Dewey and Gale, is to kind of give you the illusion of she could die. Because they're not really focusing on her.
Yeah, I don't think it really works that well.
I'm not saying it works well, because I think Neve Campbell her and Dewey have been the best characters going throughout the film series so far. I just, I think that's what they were going for. They're we'll keep her distant that way, at the end, maybe she will die,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can.
Because they've done that in, previous horror films, in Friday the 13th Part 2, kill her off, and several times they've killed Jamie Lee Curtis off.
I can see it. I think that one of the problems that really plagues Scream 3 throughout is that it does not have a lot of tension going for it.
Well, when every second has a fucking jump scare or a jump scare music sting, which is often, this movie could have a drinking game where it's just jump scares and jump scare music stings.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that shows that a horror film really isn't working on all levels, because if you got to cram in 17 jump scares in 30 minutes, you're probably not really telling an effective story. And I think that's partially the storyline itself. One thing I think that really takes away from Scream 3 in its suspense is that the killer can now clone people's voices, literally the exact voice of the person that he's trying to clone. And I think part of that issue is that when they're calling and you get the real voice of the killer, it's pretty menacing. The guy who plays the killer's voice throughout, what's his name? I forget now. See, that's the problem. As Ghostface, him playing the voice doesn't even get noticed. Roger Jackson. Roger Jackson's voice is actually really menacing. I love the levels of it too, because it fluctuates.
I love when he says die.
Yes, exactly.
He's gonna die.
Yeah, because he's got that little inflection going on that makes it more menacing than if you hear him talking to people and then literally playing Dewey's voice or playing, I guess,
Cotton's voice.
Yeah, Cotton's voice. those things don't really instill suspense. I guess, it's meant to work in the same level as you never know who to trust and who's talking to you. Sort of like a Thing type paranoia, but it really doesn't work really well in Scream 3.
Well, part of the problem is, too, this movie has literally no one to, like, point fingers at who done it.
Right. There's no...
Where the first two films, the problem was, like, the pointing was so arbitrary.
It was already pointing.
Yeah.
Like, right away.
Yeah. Here, there's, like, no pointing. Yeah. There's no fingers pointed at Roman. There's no fingers pointed at anybody.
Only initially.
At anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... So you just end up like... Huh. Ain't that...
Yeah. And like we said, there are some major areas where they could have improved on who they had as a killer that would have made more sense, that could have been expanded on in Scream 3, that the ideas are already there, but they just didn't run with those ideas. Whereas Roman is probably like the last pick for a person to suspect, not because the film did a great job of hiding it, but because the film hides Roman so much that you're not even thinking about him as a character. He literally is not a full-fleshed character, and only until the last 25 very long minutes of this 2-hour-long running time film of constant encounters with Ghostface do we get that information about, Roman was, he had a secret family with Maureen, and he was ostracized from Maureen, and she didn't accept him. And
wouldn't you think, like, because by the time he finds Maureen, he's like, I'm your son. He's like 24 years old. Don't you think we should, like, get out? Yeah. I don't want to see you. He'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Definitely has some attachment issues. That's for sure.
Well, I would like to know, like, what was his, like, life with his other family like then? Was he, like, a foster... he doesn't say he's a foster child or anything. Was he just,
Again, those are issues that we get where we don't really have much information about Roman.
Is John Milton his father? Yeah,
who knows?
Who did Maureen sleep with at?
What if Roman
thing? Well, I was say, as he said, bang, she got fucked 3 ways to Sunday, and, that little study room of 70s orgy party.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing could be, like, Roman could have made that whole thing up. Could have been just obsessed with Sydney.
No, they showed the...
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, there are many ways for them to have taken this story.
He could have been just someone who's obsessed with the story, kind of like...
Yeah. They could have taken it in many ways, but to have him literally in sort of a Star Wars, which they mention as a trilogy, as literally a Star Wars, like, I'm family to you, it's a little much, I think.
Should have been Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
Because after that cameo...
I forgot even that Carrie Fisher was in here and that they mentioned Star Wars as a trilogy and Carrie Fisher. And then you have the final, no, I'm not I Am Your Father, but I am family to you. And it's a lot like Star Wars in that sense, that they're really working off of that as a, mechanic for the film. I don't know.
I just found it funny, too, because Carrie Fisher always used to joke that, she's like, I slept with George Lucas to get that role to be Carrie Fisher, to be Princess Leia, and she's in here, was like the old bitter lady sitting in the archives with the photos, like, yep.
So one thing that we didn't talk about, that I'm surprised we haven't touched on yet, is Courteney Cox's hair. One of the biggest travesties of 2000.
When we first get to see her and she's talking, I just want when she looks like to the crowd, like, yes, and like smiles and just like, I just want to pause it and like start playing the Curb theme, like bum bum bum, just because it's like
pretty awful.
It's bad.
The story behind Courteney Cox's hair is that at the time, apparently David Arquette had suggested that Courteney Cox have a Betty Page haircut. But the hair doesn't really look like Betty Page haircut. I mean, she's got the moderate bangs, but the bangs themselves are just really, they've just been hacked at and destroyed. And so you end up like a lot of scenes that are really strange. You get a lot of moments where Courteney Cox's bangs are like just completely jagged all over the place in each scene because I feel like they could not keep them. They could not keep the bangs controlled. So they ended up just being like, sometimes there's spaces between the bangs. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes, they're uneven. Sometimes they are sort of even. And the weird thing is that apparently this was a wig. This wasn't her real hair. She used a wig. So,
I hope to God so, because it's like...
But why? Why would the wig be this bad?
Honestly, that's probably why she got kicked off of 60 Minutes, too. Not because of,
They're like, what the fuck
other
are you doing with
other
your
things.
hair?
They showed up, she showed up, to do 60 Minutes, too, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
No. No one's going to take you seriously.
No. None of that hair. Yeah, so the hair is really bad. Apparently there's some explanation for it. It's not a good explanation. I don't know. Even if they got the wig, no one, Wes Craven wasn't thinking, Courtney, that looks awful.
I'm sure it had to be a wig because she didn't have that hair at Friends. So,
right, yeah, it had to have been. But
she's making that Friends money,
But I don't know how, literally 50 different people on production
thought that
were
was
looking at the wig and like, okay, yeah. Like,
maybe they thought it'd be funny to rip her,
maybe.
We're gonna give you this
It
really
does go
shitty
down
looking wig
in history as one of some of the worst hair on film. Although I've seen quite a few. Single white female is another good example of why the fuck did we ever think that hair looked good with the bowl cut style red hair. But yeah, it became a trend after Single White Female. How about Michael and I just watched this film not too long ago. It just released, When a Stranger Calls Back. Terrible, terrible hair that looks like a giant mullet. So it's not the worst hair that I've ever seen on in a film, but it's pretty bad, and it definitely stands out throughout because Courteney Cox gets a somewhat leading role in this movie. I mean, bigger than Sydney.
Thank God by Scream 4 her hair is,
It goes back
in order, She felt like that's like the best part about the Scream franchise. Courteney Cox by Scream 4 finally has halfway decent hair.
Yeah. And you get a more normal ensemble as well from most of the cast, more modern ensemble from them.
What are you talking about? Jenny McCarthy is like the epitome.
No, not in the cast sense, but a wardrobe sense.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, what are you talking about? Jenny McCarthy's the peak of modern
2000s era.
What does she do now? She's just on Dick Clark's Rockin'
Eve, yeah,
and that's it.
Spreading her anti-vax bullshit.
How did she ever become famous?
Mark Wahlberg. No, I don't know. But before that, I don't know.
Because she was a big deal, like, kind of like,
Jim Carrey.
In the 90s, like, oh, Jenny McCarthy, but...
Yeah.
Now, after when you watch Scream 3, she's like,
big old boobies.
You're just like, that's low rent, very low rent, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Huh?
Not Sarah Michelle Gellar. Yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
All right. All right, so another thing that we didn't talk about. How about the kills in this movie? Because... there are quite a few murders in this movie, but
they amp it up this time.
Yeah, they do increase the body count because you have so many more characters. Because you've got all of the characters from Stab 3, along with your primary cast. And as Randy said, don't be surprised if some of your primary cast dies. Except they don't really.
Again,
in this movie.
Again, cube the curb theme. Bump.
Yeah.
When the end rolls and everyone's still intact, just bum, bum.
Everybody's having a nice popcorn and movie night.
I know. Sydney's dating Kincaid now, Mm-hmm. American Hugh Grant. Yeah, no, they're good. The best, I mean, they're not good. They're, just... all like
basically,
really,
they're all literally like just pretty much stabbing.
Just stab in the back. Everyone gets stabbed in the back. But this film has one of the best kills in all Scream. And that's the house exploding.
Yes. Like I said, they Jeff Daniels this one.
First off, I'll show them the whole idea of like they're faxing in a new script and they're reading it off, and they're like Parker Posey and Angela and the other guy that plays like handsome Dewey. And they're like all like trying to fight to get back into the house because they're like, oh, the script says I'll show mercy to the one in the house, the one in the house. And then handsome Dewey's the one that gets in, and they're standing on like the patio, 50 feet away, clearly screaming like, "What's it say?" And the guy's reading the facts, and there's no light, so he can't see. And he grabs a fucking Zippo, pops that bad boy. Starts reading the script and he says, "I'll show mercy to the one who smells gas." And then he screams and the house fucking goes up.
It's a hilarious
It's hilarious because, one, how did no one smell the gas?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Two, do you know how much gas would have to be poured on that house to make an explosion like... Or what is it like? Or three? Or is like the house like hooked up to like a propane line? Like it had a propane heat source or something, and they're leaking gas.
Yeah, that's one
like
thing they don't show you about.
They don't know. So
doing.
I was always like when they say the gas, like smell the gas, because if it's like propane, like you're not really gonna smell as much. It's not gonna smell as strong as like straight gasoline.
Yeah.
But I always had an image in my head as like a kid. It's like fucking Ghostface running around Parker Posey's house, dousing the whole. He's got like a bunch of fucking gas cans with him just. Jerry cans just like running around dumping it, you know. And
I like to imagine what Ghostface is doing in the background, furiously faxing things. Like, oh shit, I gotta send this out real quick for it to go in order.
Yeah, also because Ghostface is at that house.
Yeah, he's at the other fax machine.
So where is he? How is he faxing to that fax machine? Because is he at someone else's house, like next door? Like, go send the new script.
Furiously typing in the script.
Roman's sitting there, you know. I mean, if it was like a beeper, that'd make more sense. You can just, call, leave.
I do like the whole fax machine element because that really dates the film a little bit. Like somebody has a fax machine in their house that somehow Ghostface has gotten the number to fax to it. It's really funny.
This film dates itself because it's got car phones,
beepers,
faxes, creednet.com.
Yeah, a poster for Creed that says creednet.com. We checked it. It's not an active URL anymore, unfortunately.
We're gonna have to buy that.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to.
You know what? We should and just redirect it to Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm sure we'd get a lot of
like,
hits
hey,
from that.
like kind of like. It's just funny because that does sound like something that would happen like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like we're finally getting our own website. Yeah, creednet.com. You know,
you have to wonder like, what Creed.com was taken already.
Probably by some like televangelist thing or something.
Creed. Yeah,
but I mean that whole scene is just fucking hilarious.
Well, the other thing that I like about it is that when it shows him blowing up, it shows him blowing into smithereens.
Yeah,
and like that's not really
like he imploded.
Yeah, like the bomb was inside him the whole time. That's not really how you blow up in an explosion like that. But no, it's a really funny scene, and it does. It reminds me a lot of Speed.
And it's a really bad CGI.
Oh yeah.
And the blast knocks these fuckers down the mountain, like tumbling down, like a couple of kids, twirling down a hill.
That's got to be the best kill in this film. It's the most creative, I guess I would say. The most convoluted of the.
It's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea of them, because again, the idea of there's 3 scripts out there, so who's gonna die? Because Parker Posey, once they introduce that idea, is flipping shit, because Gail's gonna...
She's convinced that it's her.
Yeah, she's gonna die, because Gail dies next in the film. So, they do oh no, the scripts I guess they don't drop the idea. I'd say they drop the idea, but I guess technically they don't, because Roman's constantly I'm changing the script.
I guess, yeah, I mean...
But again, that's stupid, because we don't know what the rest of the script was supposed to be. Who was supposed to die, Yeah,
because it doesn't follow any of the... Like, it's Stab 3, it's not Stab 2, so we don't have that to go off of, what happened in Stab 2, so... Yeah.
Or what's supposed to happen in Stab 3, Is Sydney supposed to die? You know, is it supposed? Because you hear at the end Parker Posey when she's getting killed, like I know you can't kill me. I'm the killer. It's Gale all along.
Yeah.
So is that true? Is that what was supposed to be in the script? Was it supposed to be Gale that was doing it the whole time, or is she just bullshitting so she can, not get thrown through the rape mirror?
Yeah. One other aspect that they do come back to from the original...
I was going to say, which, by the way, that's also unsettling, too, going back to, the whole, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
This
mirror.
whole rape dungeon has got, a two-way mirror. He's like, hey, guys, want to check out what's going on?
Mirror, back bookshelf that swings around into a different type of living area. Yeah, it's pretty creepy.
Fucking Dewey, too. Just like... When Parker's banging on the freaking mirrors, and Dewey's like, "Hey, Gale, the mirrors are moving."
Yeah. Another kill that I think is a nice harkening back to Scream 2 is when Tyson gets thrown off the balcony, because it's sort of like, hey, remember when Sarah Michelle Gellar got yeeted off the balcony? Well, Tyson will too.
I forgot you said yeet.
Yeah, it
makes me more think of H2O, because that whole mansion at the end looks like
the whole element of that. You've got your token black guy, you've got all of the scenarios from H2O that are kind of now placed into Scream 3. You could kind of see where the 2000s started to lose itself,
really blend into they're all the same film.
Yep. You mentioned House on Haunted Hill as well, because the film's house itself and the whole element of having all of these characters together in one house, where you've got one
haunting.
Yeah, they're all very, very similar in how they look and operate. 13 Ghosts be another one. All of these 2000 films at this time.
Resurrection would be another one.
They're starting to just all blend together, use the Williamson formula, and I don't know. In this one, you can kind of see where Scream has gone off the rails a little bit, and they're starting now. They're not innovators. They're more. It's more of a we got to finish this thing. How do we finish it?
It's kind of more. Well, again, I think that's a problem that all horror films kind of have. Especially ones that are start off as innovative and creative. By the third film, they just somehow go off the rails, whether it be due to they just the people who are working on it, if they've been the same people going fuck it, I don't want any part of this anymore, I just want to get it done and over with, whether it's new people coming on and being no, we're not fucking doing that anymore, we're going to do by numbers, or if it's the studio or whatever the hell, it always just by when you have sequels. That's why I think, like I said, constantly throughout this throughout this series, is if you did this franchise once every 10 years, you could have really interesting ideas for each and every one, because it'd be new takes on the horror genre and the slasher genre. But at this time, they're pumping out a film every 2 years, so got a tight schedule. Got to hit that window.
Yeah. I think most of the other kills are really just stabbings. They really don't have much going on with them.
I do like the when you do get to the end and it's the whole final boss showdown between. I do like Sydney and Roman's kind of final tussle of
fisticuffs,
fucking Monday Night Raw fighting and smashing chairs.
I think that the ending is way too long. Just like in Scream 2, that has sort of a really extended finale of we need to explain this and this and this and this. Scream 3 takes it even further.
Last 35 minutes.
It's way too long in that whole process of it, trying to explain everything and trying to explain why Roman did what he did and all that stuff. It's way too long. With that said, I think that the fisticuffs part of it with Roman and Sydney fighting it out it's fun, because Roman has a tendency to if he can't stab someone, he's just gonna punch him right in the face. That's extended throughout the entire film. There's one part where Dewey's sort of in the way trying to stop Ghostface from coming through, and he just plows right through him with a nice.
And you get that nice comic Pratt noise, sound effects.
I do like that about Roman is like, when you can't stab, just use your fists. Just start punching people.
But he's also a fucking idiot because he shoots Sydney and then he, goes to finish her off. Doesn't shoot her in the fucking head. No, shoots her like 4 inches below the neck, so it still hits the bulletproof vest that, by the way, y'all knew she was wearing because in that scene when she's talking to Roman on the phone about, come to the house alone, that you get a 5-second cut of her looking at a bulletproof vest, and it's like, I wonder what she's going to do with that,
The other thing about that scene, though, with him shooting her, is when he shoots her, the angle of it really looks like he shot her in the neck.
Yeah, it looks like he shot her.
It does not look like there's even any room for her to be shot in the chest instead.
No, it looks like she got shot in the throat.
Yeah, so you're like, well, you're not coming back from that.
But this film doesn't use any blood.
No, that is true. It really doesn't. There's like no blood.
Outside of some scars and stuff, when it comes to any of the kills, no blood.
Yep. Really cut down on that. I think even like Tyson laying outside, thrown from the balcony.
Well, I know they were worried about, they wanted to tone the violence down because of Columbine.
Yeah, and they even kind of say that when they're talking about Stab 3 and the violence on screen impacting the killer himself, the Ghostface killer that's doing these murders, and they talk about violence on screen and toning it down. So I think that kind of transferred into the film itself and cutting out some of the blood. Even like the stabbings, you don't really get blood. Even if you remember, like
they're all like from behind or from a side where you wouldn't be able to see any blood.
Yeah,
all you like if you do see blood, it's like the after, like with Tyson, you see the blood like after the fact. He's been yeet. Right off the balcony.
I think really the only one that you get for the most part is Roman himself, who's sort of bleeding internally, and so you get a little shot of him bleeding. But other than that, there's not that much.
Patrick Warburton after he's
Oh yeah,
like
a little bit of that as well.
It's just like cuts and stuff because he got stabbed in the back, so it's just
One thing I'll say about the makeup effects is that they don't do the cuts very well. A lot of them look very cheap. One in particular is when you see, after the events of Ghostface in that explosion, Courteney Cox has a scratch on her cheek, and it's really, it looks very fake in certain lights because of the way that it's like sort of blown up and stuck on her face, like just like a piece of plastic or latex just stuck on her face. I would say that the makeup effects are not very good in this movie. Yeah, and it does show that sometimes you don't get any of those blood effects. And again, that's sort of, it works through the film in a way because then they can get away with with saying like, oh, Sydney might be dead. We don't show blood, so she might be dead. But then, obviously she comes back. So, but yeah, the whole convenience of having many vests, bulletproof vests for people, really it shines in this movie because it happens like 3 times, right? Because you have Roman the first time as Ghostface getting shot by Dewey, not dropped, because he rolls under the car and randomly leaves a photograph while he rolls under the car. I know, that's... just manages to pull it out of his suit.
Had the time when he's, rolling under the Ford Explorer to be like, oh yeah, here's my calling card,
Yeah. And then you have Roman later on who takes bullets when Dewey's shooting at him again, and then he is knocked down, but he gets back up. And then you have Sydney take bullets in a bulletproof vest, and at the end you have Dewey blasting away at him in a bulletproof vest, and he's not dying. He's just kind of yelling into the air.
You got Sydney on the head, and he's like,
yeah, yeah. So bulletproof vests, they really show their worth in this movie, even though we know they don't really work that way. Like one bullet to the chest from that distance would be like, fuck, I can't breathe. Yeah. I think I broke my rib. So 7, probably not going to get up from that.
I like though too, when Dewey's shooting him at the Roman at the end, he's in a nice police stance, properly, proper form shooting at him. But then when Neve Campbell's the head, he gets kind of gun cocked a little sideways, one-handed, right, badass.
I really like the one gun that Neve brings. It's super small, fits in the palm of her hand.
Yeah.
It's a cute one. she has to throw it away, but it's a nice gun all the same.
That was a nice touch too when she's doing because the metal, because Roman puts the metal detector for wand to make her, do a little TSA, search on herself, and she doubles up on the one leg, so when she throws the gun away, Roman doesn't know she's still got another gun on her because it's on the same leg.
Yep, that is smart. It's a good one. It's smart in a film that not that smart throughout most of it, so it's a good touch.
Yes. Well, because you also too the only way you're gonna think that that Roman's the killer before you get to the big exposit dump is when you see him in the coffin, air quotes, dead.
Yeah.
But we didn't see his death on screen.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing that's there to be like, well, he's
right, because that's really the only death that you don't really see on screen.
Yeah, you see them all.
Yeah.
They're all on screen.
Yeah, everything.
But again, speaking of not a smart film, because they're like, oh my god, is he dead? I think he's dead. Oh, they run off. You didn't smell that was corn syrup?
Yeah.
If it was blood,
Especially for some of them that work on a horror film.
Yeah.
You'd expect them to sort of...
Not only that, blood has a very distinctive smell. Very irony, You can smell the metal. Corn syrup, not so much. A lot more...
sweet.
Diabetic smelling. But it's just... It's always something that's always been even as a kid, I'd be like, that's fucking stupid.
We didn't talk about the score at all in this one. So the score sort of reuses some of Scream's themes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Doesn't use the Dewey and Gale Love theme.
No, it changes it up a little bit.
From Scream 2.
It does have some of the Western elements of it, like dun, 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 when Dewey's on. But, it changes it up a bit.
It changes it up a bit by going to fucking Creed.
Yeah, a lot of the film score is now based on songs, actual late 90s, early 2000s songs.
It's a who's, as I was reading off the soundtrack to you, it's a who's who of early 2000s alt rock, of alt metal, Stained,
Yep,
System of a Down, Creed, Static X. Oh, God.
Power Man 5000.
Power Man 5000.
Not all of those make it into the film itself, but enough of them do. There is also that one really twangy, almost spoken word
Doorsy song.
Doorsy song.
That's been in all the films.
It's a weird touch. I don't know is that I know David Arquette has a band, and I know that the band has a song in Scream 3. I don't know if it is his band that's doing it.
No, I don't think so. Because then he would have been doing it since Scream 1.
Yeah, I don't know. But whatever it is, that song is weird.
That's just the Scream staple.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really Doorsy. They use it twice. So it's in the, I think it's in the first 15 minutes and then the end credits. Really odd choice, I guess. I don't know why Wes Craven thought that was the best pick to have in the film itself.
I don't know if he got a choice on that.
Some of the music picks are very strange to have in the film as suspenseful moments. I don't know if they work that well. What else did we talk about?
What do you think of the overall cast?
The overall cast, basically you have your...
Not including
Neve Campbell and...
Because
David Arquette. No.
They're all the same.
Yeah, they're basically... one thing we didn't mention, though, David Arquette does sort of have his limp here. Although they never really show Dewey walking that much. Specifically, they seem to, not have him walking. Every scene he's in...
It's they couldn't decide whether or not he keeps the gimp from Scream 2, or if when they tacked on at the end of Scream 2 that whole... Oh, it seems like he cut through some old scar tissue. Maybe,
Yeah, most of the scenes are, him shoulder height, and you don't really see, any of his walking. You do see it once, I think, where he has a sort of a limp. But also, you never really see the gimpy hand, either, the arm.
No, you don't.
That does not come up at all. I don't recall that he even has anything like that.
No.
You know, because he does, you still see his hand movements, and I don't see that in this one. So I guess we're meant to think that he did, you know,
he's been
recover.
He's been in rehab for a while, you know.
He recovered from his hand injury. So the rest of the cast, you know, I think you're right. Parker Posey really steals the show here because she does ham it up. Like she realizes that this is a hammy character. She really goes for it. I think some of her best scenes occur because she's just super explicit and, you know,
I just
the
love,
corniness.
I know, just like, you know what this is? This is a cigarette. I haven't had one of these in a year and 6 months, and now look at me. And she like hops in the arms of Patrick Warburton. She's great.
I love too when they're receiving the fax and she's like,
I need to know what it says.
I need to know what it says.
I'm going to be, because I play you, Gail, I'm going to be around you, Gail, because I'm supposed to die next, Gail. So instead of me dying, it'll be you dying. Isn't that right, Gail?
Yeah.
You know?
I would say that she's probably like the best in this.
She's always great. She's always great in everything she does. Terrific actress. Love her. Can't say enough great things about Parker Posey.
Let's see. Who else we get? You know, Scott Foley as Roman. I think he's...
Low rent Ryan Fleet.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
That totally looks like he's supposed to like be him and kind of act like him. Like all I can think of is like...
Especially with him having glasses and then taking the glasses off, like losing the glasses. And
it's like, yeah, you're supposed to be him in Cruel Intentions, aren't you?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, I think he's fairly good.
No, he's not bad. I think he's good, but it's just like the way he looks and like kind of portrays his character, you know, Roman. All I can think of is like, oh, you're supposed to be Ryan Philippe. You're not. They couldn't get him.
Yeah,
he's busy.
I do like Patrick Dempsey, although I feel like he is
low rent Hugh Grant.
Yeah, but they're really playing him up too as being like sort of the
noir cop.
Yeah, he's the dark noir cop.
He's Cole Phelps.
Yeah, you know, because he talks about. You're not the only one that has ghosts, that sees ghosts, and you can't shoot ghosts, you can't arrest ghosts. It's meant to be philosophical.
Got that, you know, same film running over in your head over and over again. You can't tell.
Also, completely useless in this movie. As a detective.
And they try making him, too, kind of be like a red herring, because, you know, they're constantly like, I don't know. How'd you get here, Kincaid? And he's like, I'm the cop. I'm the good guy.
You're in my office. I'm a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I don't mind him in this. I think he's fine. I just think that like it's kind of funny. It's comical how little he actually gets to do as a detective in this movie.
Yeah, he doesn't do a lot of detectiving. It's mainly Gail and Dewey. You know,
doing their Scooby-Doo thing. Yeah.
Fred and Velma. Fred and Daphne. You know?
Yeah, Daphne. Yeah. Patrick Warburton, also great.
Playing Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, really doesn't have to do a whole lot. I mean...
He's got one of the best lines calling Dewey Dewdrop. Hey, Dewdrop.
Hey, Dewdrop. Yeah.
Wherein, also, just like Liev Schreiber, baggy as all hell suit, you know.
Yeah.
Looks like he just came off of like a MC Hammer video. It's great. And he's got like the most like typical like late 90s like asshole sunglasses.
Yeah, he does, yeah. Jay and Silent Bob show up.
Great cameo.
Yep.
Jay calls Courteney Cox Courtney Chung.
Yeah, Connie Chung.
Chung.
Yeah. So that's a good cameo from them. Other than that, no one else really stands out too much. We didn't really talk about this, but one really, really weird and I think poor aspect of Scream 3 is that there's a lot of reference to Maureen because Sydney has been hallucinating or seeing Maureen as a ghostly presence.
Fucking exorcist.
Yeah. I don't like that at all as a part of
like
this
the
film.
whole like supernatural.
Yeah, no, I don't like
it comes off with more supernatural than dream, like, you know.
Yeah, it does. And I don't like that it's here because, like, again, it comes out of nowhere. There's been no supernatural mentions of anything throughout the rest of the series, and now all of a sudden she's seeing ghostly things, and her mom in a body bag is popping up just like in Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, the whole scene where she's being dragged through the hallway by Freddy Krueger. I I don't like that whole element to it. I think they really could have left that out. But I guess...
See, that's where at the end, when they have, like, her door, like, she's like, I'm not gonna lock it because I feel safe now.
Yeah.
Now that all the loose ends are tied up. She doesn't lock the door, but then it breezes open.
It's her mom.
No, I was saying Freddy. That's
it's Freddy coming in.
It's all been a fucking dream, you know?
Yeah. And then they're gonna watch New Nightmare. That's what they're watching at the end. Because they don't tell you what movie they're watching.
Next
film. You're gonna have to come and see.
Next film, Freddy versus Neve.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't love the Maureen supernatural ghost aspect of the movie, but Lynn McRae's sufficiently creepy, I guess. Showing up at the window, I think, is probably one of the better scenes. You know, she pops up into the window and, you know, it's sort of like a dead woman who crawled her way out of the grave with her bloody fingernails.
Before the ring.
Yeah.
7 days.
So I think that's, you know, she does a pretty good job, even though I don't like the whole element of that. And then, you know, you have the rest of the cast that they're pretty much fodder. I think, like, the guy who plays Tyson,
Dion Richmond.
Dion. Yep. I think he's good because he's likable, and as you said,
he's really the only, you know, Parker Posey's likable, but that's because she's a bitch and an asshole, but like, because the way she's portraying her, it's like, oh, you know, if you met her in real life, you're like, oh, what a cunt, you know. But Dion Richmond as Tyson, he's the only likable person on that whole stab crew, and you feel bad when he gets.
Yeah, he's just.
I can't say that.
He gets stabbed a bunch of times.
I know. Like he's really like wholesome, nice. You know, he realizes he's the token black guy. You know.
Yeah. Too bad for him. Too bad.
Always felt bad, but I think he does an adequate job. Doesn't get a lot to do. I think he does a pretty good job. You know, with his character. He makes, like you said, makes him likable.
Yeah. Angelina, Emily Mortimer plays her. Not memorable at all. Really.
No,
not at all. So nothing really to say there. I like Lance Henriksen in this movie. You know, obviously he's supposed to play the sort of
skeezy,
skeezy producer guy. But I mean, I like him, and it's a little bit of a different character here because in the 90s, a lot of time Lance Henriksen would sign on to do a production, and they would only have him for a really short amount of time, so they'd film all of the scenes like one time, and then they would market him as being in the film. But he really wasn't in the film that often. Like, they would have him be in key scenes, but he really was not a major player. And he would normally play like the hero type. So in this film, he's got a little bit of a different character, and I think that was Wes Craven casting him in that sense because he didn't want him to be. He wanted him to be in here and be recognized, but not for the same types of characters that he would normally be. So, you know, I think that was a good touch for it.
Matt Kiesler is
Tom. Yeah, there's the Dewey stand-in there.
I call Matthew McConaughey because he a couple of times a little all right. You know, when he's talking.
Yeah.
I just like that they casted like this suave, slick backed haired guy to, you know, like Matthew McConaughey looking fucker to be Dewey, you know.
Yep.
And you get to see Dewey kind of like, yeah, he's playing me.
Yeah, yeah, he's very proud of that.
Because Gail's like, who the hell is he supposed to be? And Dewey's like, that's supposed to be me.
Other than that, I think that's about it. You know, fairly good cast all around, and they do get a bunch of new faces in here because of the Stab 3 filming at the same time. So, helps to add fodder for the Ghostface killer too.
Gives them a reason to actually start killing people.
Yeah. That's about it for me. You got anything else to add about Scream 3 before we give it a rating?
No, I think that's about it. Covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, you know, I would say that it's not there's not a whole lot going on for it that you can really pick out. So it has its funny scenes. I would say one of the funnier scenes is when Ghostface chucks the knife at Dewey and it flips around and hits him with the butt of it,
and he tumbles down the stairs.
Like some of these scenes like are so cheesy.
I can just imagine
I can just imagine when he
fell down the stairs. Like they should have just added like before they fade to black, like Courteney Cox just be like, "Oh, Dewey."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. All right, so out of a scale of 10 Creed posters, what would you give Scream 3?
I'll give it a 6. I think even though it's a greatly flawed film, it's still enjoyable. I think the campiness works much better in this film than it did in Scream 2. Where Scream 2, it's kind of a little annoying about how Scooby-Doo-esque it is. Here, I think, with the whole kind of new nightmare idea of it being a movie within a movie, makes the campiness work, and it's more campy from the get-go than compared to Scream 2. I think our main cast of players, they're all great. Courteney Cox does a great job. David Arquette does a great job. Neve Campbell does a great job. Underutilized, but great job. I think the kills in this film are terrible outside of the poor Matt Kessler getting fucking Jeff Daniels from Speed. I think half the supporting cast is good. Parker Posey's definitely the highlight of this film. I'd say if for any reason to watch this film is to watch Parker Posey's performance, because she's great, hilarious, and just a ball to watch. I think the story has some interesting ideas in it, like the whole idea of it being focused around the new Stab film, and the idea of there being different scripts out, and the killings being based off of the scripts, but they drop a lot of these ideas and don't go all the way with them. And that can be pretty annoying. I think the whole fact that Roman's the killer is kind of a half-assed, very cliched, like, oh, you had a half-brother all along. And the fact that the film doesn't give you any red herrings at all in the film outside of Kincaid and Milton, and the fingers aren't really pointed at them to begin with, it makes the whole build up to the end have no tenseness to it at all. I do enjoy the fight scenes though, because they are kind of campy and, hamming it up like a good old fashioned bar brawl. So that's a plus. Well, I'd give it a 6. It's definitely probably the weakest of all the Screams. But I still think it's worth watching because it's, I think, on the whole, due to its performance and direction by Wes Craven, better than most slasher films that you'll probably see, even at half-baked mode.
Yeah, I would probably... a 6 sounds pretty good to me. I think it can be a fun film if you watch it in the right mindset. If you're watching it as sort of like a serious sequel to Scream, you're gonna be disappointed. But as long as you're into having fun with it, you're open to the campiness that is inherent to this, especially since we were following Dewey and Gale throughout most of the film, and Sydney is sort of a secondary story here. You're gonna enjoy it. If you like the meta commentary that Wes Craven did with New Nightmare, this is not up to that point, but it's still a nice addition to Scream, especially with that whole Stab 3 area where it adds some characters that you can follow until they're killed off by Ghostface. Unlike what Randy says, this film doesn't have enough strengths to actually kill off its main characters. And I think people probably would have rioted if they did. For whatever reason, Gale, Dewey, and Sydney, I think felt like they were untouchable at this point, so they didn't feel like they could kill them off. But
that is point I forgot to bring it up. That is like the whole fact that this time you bring Randy back from the dead just for that whole video segment to spill out the rules of a trilogy, and none of the rules from that even apply.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of trying to say like, oh, they broke the mold, but at the same time, shitty bait and switch.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest flaw in Scream 3, besides it has its like dull moments, it has a lot of not so great kills. The worst aspect is Roman as a character, because it's really shoehorned in there that, this is the explanation for everything that's gone on since the beginning with Scream, that he sort of set in play all of this stuff with Billy. I think that it's really just forced on this movie in particular to try to do a wrap up. And if they had just kind of gone with Roman as another crazy guy who's gotten obsessed with Sydney, I think it would have worked even better than just trying to make sure that everything gets wrapped up and tied together.
Especially because he's the director of Stab 3, so instead of making a fake story about Sydney, he's going to make his own.
Yeah. Or trying to facilitate a Stab 4 or something like that.
But I think that idea gets picked up in the next one, so...
Yeah, it does, yeah. So... but yeah, Scream 3 is fairly fun. It's definitely, for me, the weakest film in the series. And at this point, it definitely goes Scream 1, Scream 2, Scream 3 for me. And I do think that people should watch Scream 3 as just to finish out what was originally intended as the trilogy. But, it goes downhill with Scream 3. And you can see, especially here in the 2000s, where... horror films sort of got caught in a rut a little bit and kind of reiterated on the same topics.
Just gotta wait 3 years for Saw.
Yeah.
Until that runs the formula into it.
That's right. All right, so we are going to be back in 2 weeks with Scream 4. It'll be the end of our Scream marathon, the last film in the series. Looking forward to it. I've only seen Scream 4 one time. And so I'm ready to watch it again and pick it apart. It'll be fun.
I think it'll be an interesting talk.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for listening. We are on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much any podcasting app that you can listen on. We're on it. We're on Spotify too. We also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We're on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. And we have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com where you can write to us, let us know what you think of the show, and any suggestions you have for upcoming episodes for movies that we'll cover. Thanks for listening. Catch us in 2 weeks for Scream 4, and we hope to see you back.
Take care.